Obviously, at the time, there was a lot of pressure on the Chancellor, who was at the time Rishi Sunak, to support SMEs, and that is to be applauded, of course. But I think fairly unprecedented getting this amount of liquidity out into the market in such a short space of time. I've heard on pretty good authority that about 70% of that almost £50 billion was distributed to UK SMEs within a period of just 3 to 4 months. So yeah, it is staggering. And from what you're then seeing kind of towards the end of that period is the counter-fraud minister of the government, Theodore Agnew, resigning really quite famously and quite loudly in the House of Lords, saying that so few checks had been done, it wouldn't have delayed the process beyond a couple of days, just having some standard fraud checks in there. And he popped his papers down and walked out. And interestingly, I've got to know Lord Agnew. In fact, he became a consultant at Manolete because we were, as the number one guy for the government for counter fraud. We had a lot to learn from him, of course. So super chap. We started getting applications for cases that were basically, we call them just BBL cases. Basically, the company had been, the only claim there was a bounceback loan claim. In Q1 of 2020, so just a few months after the money had gone out the door. And it shows how kind of hot on the case IPs up and down the country were. And classically, it's not so much the fraudulent application, self-certifying the wrong numbers of turnover, etc. That's not a loss to the company. The real loss is your other factors, if you rightly, what the company did with that money afterwards once they received it. And what IPs were picking up very quickly, and again Barclays, when we come on to the project we're doing with them, is that within a few days, a few weeks, all of that bounce back loan money was coming out of the company's bank account and into the director's personal account and never coming back, or to family members or to some new code that they'd established. And then, of course, they were trying to liquidate, bury, if you like, the original company that took the BBL. And what was very interesting was that Companies House put a block on the huge number of dissolutions that were being attempted. I think government really woke up to the fact that actually if they allowed these companies to just be dissolved, there wouldn't be a proper professional insolvency investigation carried out, and hundreds, thousands, potentially more businesses and individuals would have got away with all of this. So they put a blocker on that. So that's really where we came in, and we found that, and I think this is where the media was really helpful, because the Daily Mail and others had been running these stories about people buying new cars, financing extensions to houses by pocketing this money. A lot of media was run on it, and that we found helpful, because the time it usually takes for us to complete a case is an average of about a year, 12 months, which in the world of litigation is fast. But what we noticed on these BBL cases, it was just 4, 5, 6 months, and the people were paying back everything of the loan. And I think the media was just putting such a psychological pressure on these directors to hands up. They probably felt kind of very wronged and unlucky by what happened in COVID, and they felt they were kind of morally owed this money some way by the government. But obviously they were breaking the law. That a number of them had parked the money into a separate personal bank account and hadn't touched it. Thinking if we get away with it, if within 2 years' time no one's asked for it back, yes, the wife and I will start spending it. But if someone does ask for it back, we don't want to be tarred with the brush of being a criminal, end up on some Daily Mail page. So they return the money back in full very quickly and active, and they've done incredible work, the Insolvency Service, on this. But obviously that's not Manilay's kind of area. We get the money back. What happens after that is down to them. We were then approached by Barclays. There's a super chap that works in Manilay called Graham Briggs, who will know he was a partner at Addleshaws for up in Leeds for many years. And I think Addleshaws were a panel firm of Barclays. Graham knew them very well indeed, and they invited us to construct a scheme for them to recover their fraudulent bounce back loans, because of course Barclays was the biggest distributor of these loans. So they have been fantastic to work with. They brought in the British Business Bank, of course, who again were the people charged with overseeing all of this, and we set up a structure with them where we're running a pilot scheme at the moment with 120 really pretty obvious fraud BBL cases. And the idea, they clearly, Barclays had asked for the money back. They hadn't really paid anything of these. And TLT solicitors, on behalf of Barclays, said, please pay the money back. Usually no response at all from the directors. And so, and this is really where the Insolvency Service do come in as far as we're concerned. Barclays then put all these companies through the compulsory liquidation process, which of course then the official receiver is at least the initial liquidator on these companies. And what was very interesting was that as soon as those documents went into court, about 15% of those directors suddenly raised their heads, engaged with Barclays, and paid all the money back. So for the UK taxpayer, bang, real action was being taken. And what Barclays had told us, it was before approaching Manilay on this, their recovery rate was 0.01% on these BBL, on the defaulting BBLs. So they couldn't believe what they were seeing. It then went into the official receiver, the Insolvency Service, and I must say they have done an outstanding job processing these cases through their bit of it within 21 days, which really is super fast because it's quite a high number of companies on top of a very busy time for them. And then into a private IP firm, which I can't mention the name of, but they are en masse then doing the investigation work. A few recoveries have come when they've contacted the directors, but really quite a small percentage. So most of those have now come over with them being assigned, sold to Manilay, with us covering all the IP's fees up front in cash. We've then got a very high settlement within weeks on these cases, with about 30% that have come to us already. So the model's looking very good indeed. Our minimum's always been 20,000, so in fact 50,000 was perfectly fine as far as our metrics were concerned. And what's fascinating is that I think there are lots of other banks watching this pilot with Barclays, and we are hopeful that others will follow Barclays' excellent guidance and follow a similar route. We are a little bit concerned that as time goes by on all insolvency cases, the prospects of recovering monies do reduce, of course. So we are encouraging the other banks and other financial providers of BBLs, to come forward. But of course, a lot of them do want to see the final outcome of the pilot.